I never thought I'd end up raising someone else's kid, but life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges at you. It all started when my wife's best friend began spending more and more time at our house with her daughter. Our daughter and her friend were both 7, and they got along like 2 peas in a pod. But that's not where the problem lay. The real issue was her friend's dad. I met some lazy people in my life, but this guy took it to another level. He was the type who bragged about never changing a diaper when his kid was young. Can you believe that? While most dads would love spending time with their kids, this guy acted like being a father was some kind of burden. He never showed up for school events, never helped with homework, and couldn't care less about his daughter's interests. His weekends were dedicated to drinking beer and watching sports. That's it. My wife's friend was trying her best to handle everything on her own. She worked hard, managed the house, and tried to be both mom and dad to her little girl. You could see how exhausted she was most days. This meant they ended up spending almost every weekend at our place while her husband was busy with his important sports watching schedule. Now, don't get me wrong. I liked the kid. She was sweet and well-behaved. But I had been looking forward to spending my Saturdays with my own daughter. I work long hours during the week, and weekends were supposed to be our special father-daughter time. Instead, I found myself taking care of 2 kids every weekend. Things got even more complicated when we started paying for both girls' dance classes. The deadbeat dad wouldn't contribute a cent, claiming it was a waste of money. His wife couldn't afford it on her own, so we stepped in. It wasn't just about the money, though. It was the principle. Why was I taking on responsibilities that should have been his? The situation reached a breaking point on Mother's Day. That morning, I took both girls to their dance class as usual. Afterward, my daughter asked if we could stop to get something for her mom. Of course, I agreed. It was Mother's Day after all. But then her friend asked if we could get something for her mom too. That hit me hard. Here I was buying a Mother's Day gift for someone else's wife because their husband couldn't be bothered to step up. The frustration had been building for months, and that day, something in me snapped. A few days after Mother's Day, I finally spoke to my wife. I tried to be calm about it, explaining how tired I was of raising someone else's child and how it was taking away precious time from our daughter. I thought she would understand, but instead, she got upset. She insisted that her friend needed our support and that we couldn't turn our backs on them. The conversation turned heated, and before I knew it, my wife moved to the guest bedroom. The silence in our house was deafening. I felt horrible, but I also felt like my concerns were being dismissed. It's not easy balancing work and family life, and the added pressure of compensating for another man's negligence was wearing me down. What made everything more complicated was that our daughter and her friend were inseparable. They did everything together, and their friendship was truly special to watch. But it also meant that every time I planned something special with my daughter, her friend would be there too. We'd end up paying for both girls' activities because the other dad thought it was a waste of money. Little did I know at the time, but there was so much more going on beneath the surface than I realized. The situation was about to take a turn that would change all our lives. The weekend after our argument, when my wife's friend and her daughter didn't come over as usual, my wife and I finally had a real talk. That's when I learned the devastating truth. Things at my wife's friend's home were much worse than anyone had known. The neglectful dad wasn't just uninvolved. The whole situation was toxic. Mother's Day had been a breaking point for her too. When her daughter came to me for a Mother's Day gift instead of her own dad, something clicked in her mind. She realized her daughter didn't even see her biological father as a real dad anymore. It was a wake-up call that staying in her marriage for the kid's sake was doing more harm than good. She had come to my wife for help because she had no family nearby and no money to leave on her own. She was trapped, desperate, and had nowhere else to turn. And the night my wife was planning to ask me if we could help them, I had my outburst about being tired of raising someone else's kid. Now I understood why my wife had reacted so strongly. Learning all this hit me like a ton of bricks. My frustration about weekend plans suddenly seemed pretty small compared to what they were going through. Here I was complaining about spending time with a 7-year-old, while her mom was gathering the courage to escape a toxic situation. After a long discussion, my wife and I decided to open our home to them. We had a 4-bedroom house, so space wasn't an issue, though my wife had to move her home office to the basement. Within a week, we helped them move all their stuff in. Our daughter was over the moon about having her best friend live with us, though we made sure to explain that she could still have alone time with either parent whenever she wanted. The transition wasn't easy. Going from 3 people to 5 in the house was a big change. But watching these 2 little girls together, seeing how happy they were, made it worth it. The mom didn't make much money. She worked as a florist at our local health network, but she was determined to make a better life for her daughter. Then came a ray of hope. The health network announced a program that would pay for employees to go to nursing school. With the current nursing shortage, they were desperate for new nurses, and they'd cover all the costs. It was exactly what she needed, a chance to build a career that could support her and her daughter. The catch was that the program was intense, 18 months of hard studying, and she could only work 20 hours a week while enrolled. We worked out a deal. She and her daughter could stay with us until she graduated and got on her feet as a nurse. Having an end date helped everyone feel better about the arrangement, even though May of next year seemed both too far away and too soon. But just when things were looking up, her soon-to-be ex-husband decided to make everything as difficult as possible. When he found out he'd have to pay child support, he turned into an even bigger nightmare. He started pulling every dirty trick in the book. The divorce battle turned ugly fast. This guy who never cared about his daughter suddenly became expert at making everyone's life difficult. He'd skip court dates on purpose, forcing everything to be rescheduled. He even tried claiming his wife was a bad mother, despite having zero proof. Every time we thought we were getting somewhere, he'd throw another wrench in the works. Meanwhile, life in our full house found its own rhythm. My wife, who works from home, handled most of the before and after school stuff. It was a lot more work than she was used to, but she stayed positive about it all. Having a clear plan helped me too. Knowing this was temporary made it easier to handle the daily challenges. The biggest surprise in all this was how our household dynamics changed, especially between me and my wife's friend's daughter. She quit dance class and started playing soccer instead. I think having stable support at home gave her the confidence to try new things. But the real bonding happened over Legos, of all things. My own daughter never cared much for them, but this little girl and I started building sets together. It became our special thing. I still made sure to have daddy-daughter dates with my girl. She stuck with dance and even started fencing classes. Sometimes I joke about being scared that she'll be able to beat me in a sword fight one day. But watching her grow and try new things while knowing she's helping her best friend, it makes me proud. Living with roommates in my 40s wasn't exactly part of my life plan. Some days, the lack of privacy and constant activity in the house gets overwhelming. Paying for extra expenses isn't fun either, especially while waiting for the divorce and child support to get sorted out. But I've learned to take a few hours each month for myself, just to recharge and keep my sanity. Looking back at that Mother's Day when I complained about buying an extra gift, I feel pretty small. What seemed like an inconvenience was actually a turning point that helped a mom and her daughter start a new life. Now, watching this little girl flourish in a stable home, seeing her and my daughter's friendship grow stronger, and even those quiet moments building Legos together, it all means something more. The nursing program is tough. My wife's friend studies constantly when she's not working her reduced hours. We all pitch in to help with her daughter, knowing that next May, she'll be starting a career that can support them both. The divorce is still dragging on, but we're all focused on the future instead of the past. Sure, having 5 people in the house instead of 3 isn't always easy. The bills are higher, the house is noisier, and privacy is harder to come by. But sometimes doing the right thing isn't about being comfortable. It's about being there when someone needs help. Besides, who would have thought that helping my wife's friend would lead to me getting a Lego building buddy? I've learned that family isn't just about blood relations. It's about being there for each other, even when things get tough. And while I never planned on helping raise someone else's child, seeing her grow more confident and happy makes all the sacrifices worth it. Sometimes the best things in life come from the situations we never saw coming. Looking ahead to next May, I know I'll miss our Lego sessions and the happy chaos of having them here. But knowing we helped them build a better future, that's worth more than all the quiet weekends in the world.